The art of invisible power. How to control without being seen right now. Someone is controlling your life. They're making decisions for you, setting your limits, deciding your worth, and you don't even know their name. This is reality. Power flows like water, always moving, always shifting, always finding the path of least resistance. And if you're not directing that flow, you're drowning in it. They operate in shadows while you stumble in the light, believing you're free while dancing to their rhythm. The power that moves mountains without anyone seeing your hands, while others preached about what should be. He taught what is, and what is this? The world belongs to those who understand the game, not those who play by the rules. This isn't conspiracy. Every choice you believe is yours has been carefully architected by someone who understands your psychology better than you do. The restaurant you chose, not the loudest ones, the ones who actually get what they want. They don't argue. They don't demand. They create situations where saying yes feels inevitable. They make you feel like their idea was yours all along. They designed the menu to guide you. The career you picked, society programmed you to want it. The relationships you're in, you were conditioned to need them. Today, you learned the art of invisible power. Not the loud, obvious power that announces itself, the quiet kind, the dangerous kind. Machiavelli understood this truth 5 centuries ago, while others wrote about virtue and honor. He wrote about results. This video will rewire you through understanding that people don't want to be controlled. They want to believe they're choosing, so you give them choices, carefully constructed ones, and every option leads exactly where you want them to go. Not motivate you, not inspire you. No one sees it at all. Most people try to be lions, roaring their power, demanding attention. Fighting openly, they lose. Because real power doesn't announce itself, it doesn't need to transform you, because by the end, you won't just see power differently. You'll become it. The illusion of choice. You think you make your own decisions. You don't. This isn't about conspiracy theories. This is about influence architecture. And right now, you're not the architect, you're the building. Machiavelli called it the lion and the fox. The lion uses force, everyone sees it coming. The fox uses cunning, the fox wins through. Invisible influence. Think about the most powerful people you know. That's not manipulation, that's mastery. The architecture of influence power is not what you can force people to do. Power is what you can make people want to do. And the key to invisible power is understanding this. People are not rational. They're rationalizing. The lighting, the music, the temperature, your posture, your tone. The way you've arranged the space. Every element sends a message. Every detail influences their state of mind. You're not decorating a room. You're programming an experience. They make emotional decisions and then build logical stories around them afterward. You engineer desires. You don't just solve problems. You become indispensable. He understood that. The prince who could make himself necessary would never be overthrown. Not because people feared him, but because they couldn't imagine functioning without him. That's invisible power. Being so seamlessly integrated into someone's reality that removing you feels impossible. So you don't appeal to their logic. You architect their emotions. Facts tell, but feelings sell. Logic informs, but emotion transforms. People might remember your words, but they'll act on your energy. You become the bridge between where they are and where they want to be. You'll notice the results immediately. See the difference? The first suggests, the second assumes. They say I need your expertise on something important. The first positions them as needy. The second positions you as valuable. And accidentally is dangerous. Because you have no control over the outcome. The first is a request. The second is an elevation. The first asks for consideration. The second plants expectation. But underneath, they're planting seeds, shifting perspectives, reframing realities. They use presuppositions, embedded commands, emotional anchors. Not like a hypnotist on stage, but like an artist, painting with invisible ink. And you do it so smoothly, so naturally, that they start to believe. They can't succeed without you. When someone walks into a room, they're not just seeing furniture and walls. They're feeling the invisible energy you've created. He didn't argue with his readers. He made them co-conspirators. In his vision, that's the difference between persuasion and manipulation. Persuasion creates allies. Manipulation creates enemies. Invisible power creates partnership through strength. The same principle applies to every interaction. You don't just say words. You create atmospheres. You don't just make requests. Machiavelli knew this, literally. The root of spelling is spell casting. Every sentence you speak changes reality in some small way. Either it moves people closer to your vision or further from it. There is no neutral. How do you become indispensable? You solve problems they didn't know they had. You provide value they can't easily replace. This isn't about being manipulative. It's about being invaluable. There's a difference. Manipulation creates dependency through weakness. When you speak, you're not just describing the world. You're reshaping it. And if you don't understand this, someone else is using your own words against you. The language of influence words are spells. Most people speak as if language is just information transfer. It's not. It's reality programming. Here's what powerful people know about language. It's not what you say. It's what you make people feel while you're saying it. The masters of invisible power speak in layers, surface level. They're having a normal conversation. For example, instead of saying, "I think you should consider this option," they say, "When you implement this strategy," instead of, "Would you be willing to help me?" This isn't about lying or deceiving. It's about understanding that all communication is influence. You're either influencing intentionally or accidentally. Machiavelli wrote letters that changed the course of nations, not through force, but through words that made his ideas feel inevitable. The psychology of scarcity. Nothing valuable is unlimited. Time, attention, respect, access to quality people, genuine opportunities. They explain themselves to people who don't deserve explanations, not because they're arrogant, but because they understand economics. Supply and demand applies to human relationships just as much as market relationships. The scarcer you are, the more valuable you become. And in doing so, they destroy their own value. Because what's always available becomes invisible. Your time, your advice, your friendship, your professional services. You don't need to explain why you're selective. You just need to be it. Consistently, authentically, without apology or explanation. Because explanations dilute scarcity. They fill every pause with words, every gap with noise. They think talking equals contributing. They're wrong. The moment you justify why you're valuable, you've admitted you might not be. He would sit in council meetings, observing, absorbing, calculating, while others rushed to prove their intelligence through words. He gathered intelligence through listening, and when he finally spoke, the room froze, because everyone knew that when Machiavelli opened his mouth, it mattered, not because they have nothing to say, but because they understand the power of withholding. When you speak rarely, people listen closely. Uncomfortable silence projects insecurity. The moment after someone asks you a question, the beat before you respond, the space between their expectation and your reply, that space is where power lives. Because in that silence, they're wondering what you're thinking. And wondering is the beginning of respect. And people can sense the difference immediately. When you're comfortable with silence, you force others to fill it. When you're uncomfortable, you fill it yourself, usually with words you'll regret. First, it makes you mysterious. People can't fully categorize you, can't predict you, can't dismiss you. Mystery creates fascination. When someone speaks all the time, their words become noise. When someone speaks carefully, their words become events. Every sentence lands with impact because it's rare and deliberate, and fascination is the beginning of influence. When you speak constantly, they tune out. When you don't fill the silence, they do. And in filling it, they tell you exactly what they're thinking, what they want, what they fear. Information is power, and silence is the most efficient way to extract it. When something is rare and valuable, people naturally want it more. When something is common and easily available, people naturally value it less. Your posture, your expression, your energy during the silence. Are you uncomfortable with the quiet? Or are you comfortable in it? Are you waiting for permission to speak? Or are you choosing not to? The difference is everything. Everything worth having exists in scarcity, and scarcity creates desire. But most people fight scarcity instead of leveraging it. The closer you are to power, the more valuable access to you becomes. But proximity to power only matters if the power is real. If you're not actually powerful, being scarce just makes you irrelevant. They make themselves too available. They say yes to everything. They chase everyone. First, become excellent, then become selective. First, create value, then create scarcity. First, earn the right to be choosy, then choose carefully. The masters of invisible power understand this intuitively. They're selective. But this isn't about playing hard to get. That's amateur manipulation. This is about actually becoming scarce by becoming excellent, by developing skills, insights, and capabilities that few people possess, by creating value that's genuinely difficult to replace. When you're truly scarce, you don't need to play games. People naturally treat you differently. They prepare more carefully before meeting with you. They listen more intently when you speak. They think twice before wasting your time, not because you demand it, but because scarcity creates its own gravity. Machiavelli understood this when he wrote about the prince's inner circle. So, the sequence matters. This applies to everything. You don't need to announce your scarcity. The art of strategic silence. Silence is not the absence of communication. It's the presence of power. Most people are terrified of quiet moments. The most powerful person in any room is often the one who speaks least. Machiavelli was a master of strategic silence. Strategic silence serves multiple functions. Second, it makes others reveal themselves. Third, it makes your words carry weight. But strategic silence isn't just about when you don't speak, it's about how you don't speak. Comfortable silence projects confidence. Learn to love the pause. The principle of indirect action. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. But the shortest path to power is rarely straight. Direct approaches create resistance. Indirect approaches create invitation, and invitation is always more powerful than force. People naturally resist being controlled, even when what you're asking for is reasonable. But they don't resist their own ideas. You create situations where your desired outcome feels like their brilliant idea. You show them the aspects of the situation that lead to your desired conclusion, while keeping your true intentions invisible. You plant seeds and let them take credit for the harvest. They don't fight their own desires. When you want something from someone, the worst strategy is asking for it directly. Direct requests activate defense mechanisms, leadership, sales, relationships, negotiations. The most powerful leaders don't give orders, while others sprint toward immediate gratification. You're building infrastructure that pays dividends for decades. He wasn't just advising princes on how to win today's war. Every interaction is either building your long-term position or undermining it. Every decision either increases your future options or decreases them. Every relationship either adds to your network of influence or drains your energy. He was showing them how to build states that would endure for centuries. His strategies weren't about immediate victory. They were about permanent relevance. So, instead of trying to convince them of what you want, you help them discover it for themselves. Direct action feels faster because you're moving toward your goal immediately, but it's often slower because you have to overcome resistance every step of the way. Indirect action feels slower because you're taking a circuitous route, but it's often faster because you eliminate resistance entirely. Short-term thinking focuses on taking. Long-term thinking focuses on creating value. Short-term thinking focuses on appearing powerful. Long-term thinking focuses on becoming indispensable. Machiavelli called this appearing to be what you are not, and not appearing to be what you are. Not deception, but strategic presentation. You help them paint a picture of their success that happens to require exactly what you offer. This takes patience. The key is understanding that people don't resist their own conclusions. They only resist conclusions that are imposed on them. This applies to every area of life. The long game in visible power is not about quick wins. It's about permanent positioning. This requires a completely different mindset. Short-term thinking focuses on transactions. Long-term thinking focuses on relationships. Machiavelli understood this better than perhaps anyone in history. The same principle applies to your life. The masters of invisible power think in decades, not days. They plant trees they'll never sit under. They build bridges they might never cross. They invest in relationships that might not pay off for years. Investing time in learning skills. That won't pay off immediately. Building relationships with people who can't help you today but might be crucial tomorrow. Developing expertise in areas that seem irrelevant now but might become essential later, because they understand that compound interest applies to influence, just as much as it applies to money. They'll grab quick opportunities while you're building foundations. They'll celebrate small victories while you're planning campaigns. They'll look successful while you look patient. Let them. They make deposits before they make withdrawals, because they understand that influence is built on trust, and trust is built through consistent value creation over time. It means being strategic about where you invest your time and energy. It means choosing relationships that have potential for mutual benefit. It means being generous with people who have the capacity to be generous back. Behind every person who appears to have invisible influence is a network of relationships that took years to cultivate. They understand that power isn't just what you can do, it's what you can get others to do for you, with you, through you. His letters reveal a man who maintained connections across political divides, social classes, and geographical boundaries. It's about what you can accomplish together that none of you could accomplish alone. It's about having access to information, opportunities, and resources that expand your capabilities beyond your individual limitations. He understood that. Today's enemy might be tomorrow's ally. Today's subordinate might be tomorrow's superior. People don't know how connected you are until they need something and you can make it happen. People don't realize how much influence you have until you use it. People don't understand how valuable you are until you're not available. Today's irrelevant person might be tomorrow's key decision maker, because when the landscape shifts, as it always does, they'll scramble to adapt while you'll be perfectly positioned to thrive. This means making sacrifices that others won't make. Saying no to immediate pleasures for long-term advantages. The short-term players will always outnumber you. Your reputation isn't built in a day. Your network isn't created overnight. Your expertise isn't developed through shortcuts. Your influence isn't established through force. Everything worthwhile takes time. And time is the one resource that separates the truly powerful from the temporarily successful. The network effect. No one builds power alone. But what can I do for this person? Not how can I use this relationship, but how can I add value to this relationship? Not what do I need right now, but what foundation am I building for the future? But most people approach networking like collecting business cards. They meet people when they need something. They reach out when they want help. They think of relationships as transactions. This is why their networks are shallow and their influence is limited. Real network building starts with a different question. Not what can this person do for me? The masters of invisible power are givers before they're takers. They solve problems before they create requests. They add value before they extract it. This doesn't mean being a pushover. It doesn't mean saying yes to everything. Machiavelli was a master relationship builder. Your network is your net worth, but not in the way most people think. It's not about what people can give you. The best networks are also the most invisible ones. The psychology of respect. Respect cannot be demanded, it can only be earned. But most people are trying to earn it through the wrong behaviors. It doesn't mean intimidating. It means capable, competent, and slightly unpredictable. We respect what we cannot fully control or predict. We respect competence that exceeds our own. We respect people who have options, who don't need us as much as we might need them. We respect those who maintain their standards regardless of external pressure. People respect what they cannot easily access or control. If you're always available, always agreeable, always accommodating, you're not building respect. Actions speak louder than words, and consistent actions build unshakable respect. You're building dependency, which is the opposite of power. It means people know you can deliver results, solve problems, and handle pressure, but they don't feel close to you, and closeness is essential for influence. People are influenced most by those they feel connected. 2. The key word is strategic, not random emotional dumping, not constant neediness. It reveals struggles you've overcome, which proves your resilience. It shows challenges you're facing, which proves your honesty. It demonstrates that you trust the other person with something personal, which creates reciprocal trust. Strategic revelation of carefully chosen weaknesses that actually demonstrate strength. It means they're not quite sure what you'll do next, but they know it will be executed flawlessly. They think respect comes from being liked, from being agreeable, from being helpful. It doesn't. Respect comes from being formidable. Formidable doesn't mean aggressive. His personal letters reveal a man who could admit mistakes, acknowledge failures, and discuss disappointments. But he did it selectively with specific people at strategic moments. He never whined or complained. He analyzed, learned, and moved forward. The psychology of respect operates on ancient principles. People become more careful around you. They prepare more thoroughly before meetings. They think twice before wasting your time. They consider their words more carefully before speaking, not because they're afraid of you personally, but because they respect your standards and don't want to appear incompetent in comparison. Machiavelli wrote that it's better to be feared than loved, but he also wrote that the ideal is to be both. The fear he was talking about wasn't terror. It was respect for your capabilities combined with uncertainty about your intentions. They know when to engage and when to withdraw, and they communicate these boundaries not through anger or explanation, but through consistent behavior. People should know you can handle whatever situation arises, but they shouldn't be able to predict exactly how you'll handle it. This creates a powerful dynamic. Respect is also about boundaries. The most respected people have clear limits. They know what they will and won't do. They know what they will and won't accept. When someone crosses your boundary, you don't argue about it. You don't explain why it's important. You simply enforce it. The art of strategic vulnerability. This might seem contradictory after everything else we've discussed, but strategic vulnerability is one of the most powerful tools in your arsenal. When you're always perfect, always composed, always in control, people can't connect with you. They admire you from a distance. Strategic vulnerability creates connection without sacrificing respect. It shows that you're human while demonstrating that you can handle your humanity gracefully. Machiavelli himself used this principle. The key is choosing vulnerabilities that demonstrate strength rather than weakness. Talking about a failure that taught you something valuable. Discussing a fear that you're working to overcome. Sharing a mistake that made you better. These revelations create connection while building respect. Strategic vulnerability also disarms defenses. When someone is expecting you to be perfect, and you acknowledge an imperfection first, they relax. They can switch between modes fluidly, naturally, based on what the situation requires. This flexibility makes them incredibly difficult to defend against because you never know which version you're going to encounter. You share vulnerability after you've established competence, not before. You reveal weakness from a position of strength, not desperation. You show humanity after you've proven capability, not as a substitute for it. Your communication style, your work quality, your personal standards, your availability, your decision-making process, each kept promise makes the next one more valuable. Each demonstration of steady character makes your reputation more solid. Over time, this creates an almost unshakable foundation of trust and respect. When people know what to expect from you, they can plan around you. And when they can plan around you, you become valuable in ways that go far beyond your individual contributions. They stop looking for flaws because you've already shown them one. They stop competing because you've shown you don't need to win every exchange. But timing matters. While others make promises they can't keep, you make commitments you always honor. While others are brilliant one day and mediocre the next, you deliver excellence consistently. While others are moody and unpredictable, you maintain steady standards. The most powerful people are those who can be strong when strength is needed, and vulnerable when connection is needed. The compound effect of consistency power isn't built through dramatic gestures. It's built through consistent, almost boring reliability. This consistency creates something profound. Trust in your character. People stop questioning whether you'll deliver. They stop wondering if you're reliable. They stop hedging their bets. When working with you, when people can depend on your promises, they give you more opportunities to make promises. When people can trust your commitments, they involve you in bigger commitments. When people can rely on your consistency, they stop looking for alternatives. They start building their plans around your reliability because they know you'll be there. Machiavelli emphasized the importance of keeping your word, not just for moral reasons, but for practical ones. This applies to everything. Consistency also compounds. Each reliable action builds on the previous one. But consistency isn't just about positive actions. It's also about consistent standards, consistent boundaries, consistent expectations. People need to know not just what you will do, but what you won't do. Not just what you'll accept, but what you'll reject. Not just when you'll help, but when you'll decline. The most powerful people are predictably unpredictable. It's about what you can inspire them to want to do. It's not about the fear you can create, but the respect you can earn. It's not about the opposition you can crush, but the alliance you can build. Their character is consistent, but their strategies are flexible. Their standards are steady, but their tactics are adaptive. It's about working through others instead of against them. Every relationship is an investment. Every challenge is training. Every setback is education. It's about creating value instead of extracting it. It's about building systems instead of winning battles. It's about becoming indispensable instead of merely impressive. Not control over others, but control over yourself. Not the ability to force outcomes, but the capability to influence them. Not the power to dominate, but the strength to lead. He showed us that power flows according to predictable principles, that human behavior follows understandable patterns, that outcomes can be influenced through strategy rather than force. You came here looking for power. You found something more valuable: control. True power is never about what you can make others do. Machiavelli's true genius wasn't in teaching manipulation. It was in revealing the mechanics of influence. The invisible power we've discussed isn't about hiding. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It happens through thousands of small decisions, consistent actions, strategic choices. Every conversation is practice. You don't need to announce your development. You don't need to declare your intentions. You don't need to explain your methods. But consistency isn't just about positive actions. It's also about consistent standards, consistent boundaries, consistent expectations. People need to know not just what you will do, but what you won't do. Their character is consistent, but their strategies are flexible. Their standards are steady, but their tactics are adaptive. Their principles are unchanging, but their methods are evolutionary. Hit that subscribe button and join a community built on wisdom, strategy, and psychological mastery. The most powerful people are predictably unpredictable. The final transformation: you came here looking for power. You found something more valuable. Control. Not control over others, but control over yourself. It's about what you can inspire them to want to do. It's not about the fear you can create, but the respect you can earn. It's not about the opposition you can crush, but the alliance you can build. Not the ability to force outcomes, but the capability to influence them. Not the power to dominate, but the strength to lead. True Power is never about what you can make others do. Machiavelli's true genius wasn't in teaching manipulation. It was in revealing the mechanics of influence. You simply need to become the kind of person who naturally attracts opportunities, naturally commands respect, naturally influences outcomes. He showed us that power flows according to predictable principles, that human behavior follows understandable patterns, that outcomes can be influenced through strategy rather than force. The invisible power we've discussed isn't about hiding. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It happens through thousands of small decisions, consistent actions, strategic choices. Every conversation is practice. Every relationship is an investment. Every challenge is training. Every setback is education. You don't need to announce your development. You don't need to declare your intentions. You don't need to explain your methods. If you find value in this kind of deep insight, make sure to subscribe. Or a slightly more powerful version, don't just watch Grow with us.